Good morning. Datuk Sri Tengku Adnan Tengku Mansur's former personal driver confirmed in court that the former minister directed him to bank in a 2 million ringgit cheque made out to Dat Mansori Holdings Sendirian Berhad in 2016. Nik Yahaya Nik Mustafa, who drove for Tengku Adnan from 1994 to June 2018, also added that he had received the cheque in June that year. Nik Yahaya, who is the fourth prosecution witness in the trial, said he had deposited the cheque as instructed. Datuk Sri Tengku Adnan was earlier identified as the primary shareholder of Dat Mansori. However, Nik Yahaya then claimed to have no knowledge of the cheque, saying he did not know why it was issued and who is the representative of Aset Kaya Mas. Tuesday is the first day of Datuk Sri Tengku Adnan's trial over his alleged receipt of a 2 million ringgit bribe from property developer Aset Kaya Mas director Tan Sri Chai Kin Kong in the form of a company cheque to Dat Mansori Holdings Sendirian Berhad. Earlier, the prosecution told the Kuala Lumpur High Court that it would furnish evidence showing Datuk Sri Tengku Adnan allegedly sought up to 6 million ringgit from a property developer for by-election funds and received 2 million ringgit. The hearing continues before High Court Judge Saini Mazlan. The High Court was told that SRC International Sendirian Berhad former CEO Nik Faisal Arif Kamil was high up in his position in the One Malaysia Development Berhad subsidiary due to the powerful person behind him. Datuk Subur Mat Yassin, who is a former director of SRC, said that like the Chinese proverb, there was a mountain behind Nik Faisal. 68-year-old Datuk Subur testified that Nik Faisal could brush the directors aside and reduce them to nothing as he had somebody behind him. His statement came after he was grilled by defence lawyer Havinderjit Singh, who had suggested that there was no resolution by the board that appointed Datuk Sri Muhammad Najib Tun Razak as the advisor emeritus, nor was there a resolution that appointed Nik Faisal as the go-to person between the board and the then Prime Minister. Datuk Subur, however, stopped short from explaining who was that mountain. Havinderjit suggested that it was Nik Faisal who had represented himself to Datuk Subur as being in contact with Datuk Sri Najib, to which Datuk Subur replied it was more than that. He added that from his understanding, Nik Faisal had high-level meetings with the former Prime Minister, and Nik Faisal would inform the board of his meetings. The court had heard testimony from former board member Tan Sri Ismi Ismail, who said that Article 117 was added into the Memorandum and Articles of Association by Datuk Sri Najib, who was also SRC Advisor Emeritus. The article implies that SRC must take into consideration the Advisor Emeritus' advice in material and strategic matters, as well as execute the advice. The hearing before Justice Muhammad Nazlan Muhammad Ghazali continues on Wednesday. Minister in the Prime Minister's Department Datuk Liew Vui Keong on Tuesday confirmed that the government is set to table the long-awaited Independent Police Complaints and Misconduct Commission IPCMC bill during the current Dewan Rakyat sitting. In a written reply in Parliament, he said the government is finalising the draft bill for the IPCMC. Datuk Liew said approval for the draft bill is expected to be given by the Cabinet during its meeting later this week. He said the government had consulted with relevant stakeholders, including the police, when drafting the bill. He said that the IPCMC will work closely with the Malaysian Anti-Corruption Commission, MACC, to tackle corruption and abuse of power. Last September, Prime Minister Tun Dr. Mahathir Mohamad announced that the IPCMC would replace the Enforcement Agency Integrity Commission, EAIC. The IPCMC was proposed by the Royal Commission of Inquiry in 2005 to improve the police force following a spate of deaths in custody. Still in the Dewan Rakyat, Malaysia will submit to the International Court of Justice, ICJ, a judicial review on the Pulau Batu Puteh judgment, which saw the tiny disputed island awarded to Singapore in 2008. Deputy Foreign Minister Datuk Marzuki Yahya told the Dewan Rakyat on Tuesday that the government will submit the judicial review on Pulau Batu Puteh and two other islets, the Middle Rocks and the South Ledge, at the ICJ.
Berhubung kes kedaulatan ke atas Batu Putih, Batu Tengah dan Tubir Selatan pada tahun 2008, sehingga kini 7 mesyuarat MSJTC telah diadakan dalam proses perundingan pembatasan sepadan maritim di antara Batu Putih dan Bantuan Tengah. Mesyuarat ke-8 dijangka akan berlangsung pada bulan Oktober tahun ini dengan Malaysia sebagai tuan rumah. Proses perundingan ini telah tertunda sebelum ini berikutan terdapat beberapa pencanggahan dalam rundingan di antara kedua-dua negara.
On May 23, 2008, the ICJ decided that Pulau Batu Putih, a football field-sized rocky outcrop, belongs to Singapore and Batuan Tengah is owned by Malaysia. The ICJ also ruled that the sovereignty of the South Ledge will be determined by both countries through discussions on their respective water boundaries. Meanwhile, at the Parliament lobby, Deputy Finance Minister Datuk Amiruddin Hamzah said the government is expected to impose the departure levy after the Hajj season this September. The levy proposed in the budget 2019 was originally scheduled for implementation on June the 1st. Datuk Amiruddin said there were suggestions to take into account the seat classes when deciding on the quantum of the levy, adding that suggestions would be tabled to the Cabinet. The Departure Levy Bill 2019, tabled and passed by the Parliament in April, among others, will provide allocations to impose departure levy on any person leaving the country and other related matters. When tabling the 2019 budget, Finance Minister Lim Guan Eng had proposed that a departure levy be imposed at a rate of 20 ringgit per person for those flying to ASEAN countries and 40 ringgit to other countries. Yeo Bee Yin on Tuesday stressed that she will take legal action against those who spread slander over the latest pollution incident in Pasir Gudang. The Energy, Science, Technology, Environment and Climate Change Minister, in a Facebook posting, said that the allegations were an insult to hundreds of government officers from various agencies who were involved in the handling of the recent Pasir Gudang health issue. A Facebook post alleged that Yeo's husband, IOI Properties Group Chief Executive Officer Lee Yao Seng, owns 3 chemical factories in Pasir Gudang. The post also questions why the government is slow in taking action. The authorities are still clueless over the latest chemical pollution in Pasir Gudang as they scramble to trace and pinpoint the possible source. In the meantime, some 11 students from 7 schools in Pasir Gudang reportedly experienced nausea and vomiting during class on Tuesday. Authorities are still monitoring the air quality at 85 schools around Pasir Gudang, but readings are indicating an absence of toxic chemicals in the district.
Sehingga jam 11 pagi, tadi terdapat 11 kes dilaporkan membabitkan 7 sekolah, iaitu Sekolah Kebangsaan Kopok, Sekolah Kebangsaan Tanjung Puteri Resort, Sekolah Kebangsaan Kongkong Laut, Tapis Bukit Dahlia, SMK Tanjung Puteri Resort, SK Saintek dan SK Cendana. Namun mangsa hanya dirujuk di Klinik Kesihatan Pasir Gudang tanpa perlu dirujuk ke HSI.
He added an 18-member team from the Health Ministry has also been deployed to the affected schools to provide psychological support services. Meanwhile, a total of 6 industrial premises have been ordered to halt operations temporarily under the Environmental Quality Act. Malaysia is well positioned to achieve high-income economy status by 2024. According to World Bank's lead economist Richard Record, despite the nation's gross national income, GNI still below the set limit for high-income nation status, Malaysia is close to achieving it. As of 2018, Malaysia's GNI stood at $10,460, which was $1,915 below the threshold level of $12,375 that the World Bank currently sets to define high-income country status.
So we think it's likely to pass the high-income country threshold by around 2024. The threshold is currently set just over $12,000 per capita in GNI terms. Malaysia, at the end of 2018, had a GNI per capita of $10,460. So just a little bit less than $2,000 short of that threshold.
Record spoke to the media after the launch of the 20th edition of the Malaysian Economic Monitor in Putrajaya. He said Malaysia's success in achieving the coveted high-income status also depends on the exchange rate dynamics and the movement of the high-income threshold based on the US dollar, among other factors. The bank said the weakness in the external sector is likely to persist into the near term, with softening global demand weighing on export growth. The government has been asked to consider amending the Insolvency Act to allow ailing companies like Malaysia Airlines Berhad, MAS, to embark on a turnaround plan after declaring bankruptcy. Khazanah Research Institute Senior Advisor Dr. K.S. Jomo said such move has been proven fruitful in the United States, having helped large corporations, including General Motors and United Airlines.
Tapi di Amerika Syarikat, walaupun bankrupt, syarikat itu boleh terus berurus niaga. Ini sesuatu yang penting, satu kelebihan sistem undang-undang di Amerika Syarikat yang di mana taraf bankrupt itu digunakan untuk menyelamatkan dan juga untuk menghidupkan semula dan memastikan bahawa perkhidmatan dan itu berterusan.
Dr. Jomo said under Chapter 11 of the U.S. Bankruptcy Code, a company which has been declared bankrupt is allowed to continue its operations while embarking on a restructuring exercise within a certain period of time. However, he said the proposed amendment should not only benefit MAS, but instead must be open to all financially troubled companies in the country. Airbnb, the world's leading end-to-end hospitality company, says its host and guest community generated approximately 3 billion ringgit to Malaysia's economy last year. Its general manager for Southeast Asia, Hong Kong and Taiwan, Mike Orgill, is optimistic that the uptrend will continue this year.
We see that more travelers from around the world are looking for unique, authentic, local accommodation and experiences when they travel. And Airbnb is a big part of that. And finally, we look forward to working with all stakeholders in Malaysia, be it the government, whether it be communities, and also our host and guest community, to really grow the tourism accommodation pie here in Malaysia.
He was met at a media briefing on the latest update of Airbnb's operation in Malaysia. Over the past 12 months, up to July 1st, 2019, Airbnb welcomed more than 3.25 million guests in Malaysia, a significant 73% jump year on year. Welcome back. The Sarawak Young Di-Pertuan Negeri Tun Abdul Taib Mahmud joined thousands of guests at University Malaysia Sarawak Unimas' colourful multicultural Ngabang Raya celebration on Tuesday night. The event was held in conjunction with the recent Gawai Dayak and Hari Raya Aidilfitri celebrations. Also present was Media Prima Berhad Group Chairman Datuk Syed Husian Syed Junid. Unimas Vice President Professor Datuk Dr. Muhammad Kadir Suaidi in his speech said the event is aimed to promote the celebrations among guests, especially to non-Sarawakians, as well as to show appreciation to the customs and traditions associated with Gawai Dayak and Hari Raya. Datuk Mokhtar Muhammad Noor has quit the task force probing the disappearance of Pastor Raymond Kaur and activist Amri Chekmat in the wake of opposition from certain quarters. According to the Home Ministry, the former chief of the PDRM legal unit withdrew from the 6-member team to preserve the integrity and transparency of the task force. In a statement, the ministry said several NGOs had questioned Datuk Mokhtar's appointment, believing that he could be directly involved in the disappearance of Kaur and Amri. It stressed that Datuk Mokhtar was never involved in the two cases and his appointment to the task force was based on his professionalism and expertise. The ministry also expressed its gratitude to Datuk Mokhtar for his commitment in wanting to help seek justice for the families of the missing people and his willingness to consider the public's view of his membership in the task force as not to undermine the credibility of the investigation and findings to be submitted subsequently. It stated that Datuk Mokhtar's replacement will be appointed soon. On June 26th, Home Minister Tan Sri Muhyiddin Yassin announced the setting up of the task force with former High Court Judge Datuk Abdul Rahman Uda as the chairman. In Batu Gajah Perak, a Year 6 pupil, apparently influenced by pornographic videos he saw on a mobile phone, raped a 4-year-old girl cared for by his babysitter mother 3 times since May. Batu Gajah Police Chief ACP Ahmad Adnan Basri said the boy admitted to committing the offences upon questioning by police after the girl's mother lodged a report on the advice of a doctor who found a torn hymen and other tears on the girl's private parts. In a statement on Tuesday, Ahmad Adnan said the girl's mother had taken her daughter to a clinic last Friday after the girl complained of pain in her private parts the day before. He said after examining the girl, the doctor advised her mother to lodge a police report and talk to the babysitter about what had happened. Based on initial investigations, the rapes occurred early in Ramadan on May the 31st and June 17. Ahmad Adnan said the boy is being held under remand until July the 5th. He also advised parents to exercise caution when allowing their children to surf the internet. In Pulau Pinang, the body of 47-year-old Tam Kok Kiong was found on Tuesday after he fell from a ferry on Monday. The victim's body was spotted by fishermen floating in the sea near Pesiaran Gurney before rescue workers fished him out of the water. Police said Tam was a logistic agent manager in Georgetown and was identified through the identification documents found in his car, which was left unattended on the ferry. Tam was believed to have fallen into the sea at about 6:15 p.m. while on board the Pulau Kapas ferry, which was travelling from Butterworth to Georgetown. The victim's body was taken to the Sultan Abdul Halim terminal before being sent to the Seberang Jaya Hospital for post-mortem. In Malacca, 2 people were killed in an accident involving 4 vehicles along the North-South Expressway southbound early on Tuesday. The accident occurred when a motorcyclist who was heading south hit an object on the road, causing him to fall off his machine. Seconds later, a car approached and rammed into him. The trailer driver, upon seeing the motorcyclist on the road, applied his brakes before another trailer crashed into it at the rear. The deceased lorry driver was found pinned to his seat. The bodies were sent to the Alor Gajah Hospital for post-mortem. Over in Johor, 3 friends were acquitted by the Muar High Court to a charge of kidnapping a female doctor 4 years ago. In passing the sentence, Judge Datuk Halijah Abbas ruled that the prosecution had failed to prove a prima facie case against them. The 3 men were charged with abducting 29-year-old Dr. Emanita at the Sultanah Fatimah Hospital parking lot on May 6, 2015, with the intention of demanding ransom money. In Terengganu, an air steward was sentenced to 4 years in jail for 2 counts of stealing and breaking into 2 laundromats in Kuala Nerus. Earlier, 39-year-old Remy Izwan Roselli pleaded guilty when the charges were read out before Magistrate Abdul Hayy Salim. He was accused of stealing from a laundromat at Block D, Rimba Square in Kuala Nerus on June the 7th, and breaking into another laundromat at Dataran Tembusu on the same day. The court sentenced him to 2 years in jail for each count and ordered the accused to serve the sentence starting Tuesday. A Myanmar man was brought to the Ampang Sessions Court, Kuala Lumpur, to face a charge in connection with the death of a 2-year-old girl who was struck by a ceiling fan. The charge, however, was not read to Hairul Amin Harul Rushid, 24, as he could not understand either the Malay or English language. It was learned that Hairul Amin would be charged under Section 31, Subsection 1 of the Child Act 2001 for exposing the child to physical injury. According to reports, the girl died after she was tossed by a relative while playing at a house at Tasik Tambahan, Ampang. Still to come on Nightline, scores dead in multiple wall collapse. Welcome back. In India, wall collapses in Mumbai and nearby towns caused by heavy monsoon rains killed at least 30 people on Tuesday, as well as disrupted rail and air traffic, prompting officials to shut schools and offices. In the first incident in Mumbai, at least 21 people were killed and 66 others injured when a 10-meter wall fencing off an urban forest collapsed during the night. In the nearby western city of Pune, meanwhile, 6 people were killed in a wall collapse after a similar incident on Saturday killed 15 other people. 3 others also died when a school wall collapsed in the city of Kalyan, 42 kilometers north of Mumbai. During every monsoon season, which runs from June to September, India experiences fatal incidents of building and wall collapses as rainfall weakens the foundations of poorly built structures. U.S. President Donald Trump on Monday said that trade talks with China, which had stalled out in May, had already begun following his meeting with Chinese President Xi Jinping at the G20 summit in Japan over the weekend. The president, however, added that any deal between the two economic superpowers would need to lean in the U.S. favor.
It has to be better for us than for them because they had such a big advantage for so many years. In other words, you can't make a 50-50 deal when somebody else has been absolutely, I've been talking about this for years. China we had a surplus, meaning they did on us, of $507 billion. It's been hundreds of billions of dollars a year for many, many years. So obviously we can't make a 50-50 deal. It has.
The two leaders announced the resumption of talks after their meeting, reflecting a truce in their trade war. On Saturday, Trump and Xi had agreed during a bilateral meeting at the summit in Osaka to hold off on imposing new tariffs on imports of each other's goods and to move forward with trade negotiations. Coming up next, venue for FA Cup final confirmed. Sports football, the FA Cup. There will be no sporting events held at the Bukit Jalil National Stadium prior to the final between Perak and Kedah, scheduled for July 27th. This is to ensure that the teams can play on the best possible pitch. Malaysian Football League Chief Executive Officer Muhammad Shazli Sheikh Mohammed said the assurance by the Malaysian Stadium Corporation PSM was to allay fears of the two competing teams over poor pitch conditions that have plagued the venue in the past. He said PSM had confirmed that the memorable pitch where the official opening ceremony of the Kuala Lumpur Commonwealth Games was held in 1998 would remain closed until the final. He also said that the 80,000 tickets will be sold, including 18,500 tickets that will be available online. Perak won the title in 1990 and 2004, while Kedah have been champions 4 times, with the latest being the 2017 edition. And that wraps up Nightline this time around. Before we leave, let's take a look as NASA carries out a successful test of a launch abort system for a capsule designed to take astronauts to the moon. With that, I'm Brandon Wong. Thank you for watching and take care.